Hey folks, just wanted to show you a little bit of my process. So I'm out here hand forging some CuMai. If you don't know, CuMai is derived from CuMai. CuMai means 5 layers, typically 5 different layers of steel. CuMai is Cu for copper. So there's 5 different layers, 3 of them are 1095, the other 2 are copper that are sandwiched between. So it's essentially 1095, copper, 1095, copper, 1095. So what I'm doing basically is just little bits at a time. Don't want to let the steel cool down too much. Cools down a lot when you stick it on the anvil, but want to keep it up at a good hot temperature so that when you put it back in the forge, it stays at a nice high temperature. For CuMai, you don't really want to get to forge welding temperatures. You just want to kind of get it to a red hot heat instead of kind of melting stick of butter, as Dave Baker likes to say on Forged in Fire. During this process, what you're really doing, you're not actually forging, you're not forge welding, excuse me, this steel together, because copper doesn't forge weld essentially steel. It's basically a brazing process where the copper sticks to the steel. Just want to make sure nothing's melting out of the sides. When you do this, you have to make sure to weld all along the seams of the billet to make sure that none of the copper leaks out, and so that no air gets in and oxidizes and creates a lot of problems. If you notice right now, I'm using the cross peen on the hammer, and the intent is to put a bunch of essentially kind of lines this way in the billet. The billet's facing this way. I'm putting lines horizontally in the billet to kind of create a wavy pattern so that when I grind my bevels, you get a little bit of a wave in the copper. And once I'm done using the cross peen, then I'll flatten everything out, and then it's on to, for this process, you can't forge out the blade. You actually have to do stock removal, which is the process of essentially just cutting out the knife. So I'll take one of my stencils. This is for a custom order. It's for my Kodiak design. So I'll take one of my stencils, use some layout fluid on the billet, trace my stencil on it, and then I'll cut it out with my metal cutting portable bandsaw. At this point, I think I have enough cross peen in the billet, so I'll probably start flattening it out and maybe try to draw it out lengthwise and widthwise a little bit. criticize my hammering skills. I'm fairly new to this process. I'll take all the suggestions I can get. If anybody knows any better techniques than what I'm using, please by all means drop them in the comments. Kind of just using some Amazon purchased equipment. That's where I got the forge and the hammer and the V-bore anvil, which a lot of people criticize those V-bore anvils. Really not bad. I haven't had any issues with it. I think mine's a 66 pound. It was, I think, maybe 150 bucks or something like that on Amazon. Not too shabby. It does the trick. The problem with it that a lot of people criticize is that it's not a full-on steel anvil. I believe the inner core of it is cast iron, but the greater majority of the hitting surfaces and all that are all steel. So it's worked out for me so far. To each his own. Haven't seen any copper leak out of this billet so far, so that's a pretty good testament to my my crude welding skills. So good stuff. Coming along nicely. As you can see, or as you probably noticed, I'm already getting a little winded. A forge press would definitely be helpful for this, but I haven't ventured down that road just yet. Definitely plans for the future. I know I can make some beautiful Damascus. At least I'm very confident that I can, but that'll all happen in good time. For now, I've been doing this for roughly about a year. Bit of my backstory. I used to weigh about 320 pounds. Things got not so great for me. I ended up with type 2 diabetes. So some big lifestyle changes happened. I quit drinking alcohol, quit eating so much, and I've actually dropped about 120 pounds, so now I'm down to about 200, and continuing my weight loss journey. But along with that came a lot of, I lost a lot of fat, but I also lost a lot of my muscle mass. So little things like this get me winded pretty quickly. But it's fun, and maybe I'll build it back up by continuing the process. pretty thick billet to start off with. I'm using a 1/8 inch core. I'm using 0.03 inch sheets of copper, and then I believe they are, I want to say they're essentially 0.9 inch, almost 1/10 of an inch pieces of 1095 on the jacket on the outside. So overall, you do the math, but the billet's over 1/4 inch thick, and I'm trying to hammer it down to a minimal or a maximum, I should say, of maybe 3/16, which is just under 1/4, but I'd like to get it a little bit thinner than that. If possible, I'd like to try to make 2 blades out of this one. I think I got it somewhat thick enough. The first design for my custom order is only about 1 inch wide. This is a 2 inch wide billet, so I should be able to get 2 1 inch wide knives out of it. At least overall, it needs to be 1 inch wide to cut the knife out of the billet itself. Ideally, I actually got another custom order for one of my Shadow Fang designs. It's kind of a little bit of a play on a karambit. It's got a finger ring for the pinky, and it's got a nice little blade on it. And ideally, I'd love to be able to get one of my medium kitchen knives and one of the Shadow Fangs out of this billet, but we'll see. A little bit of a lengthy process. Like I said, try not to keep the steel out of the forge for too long. Let it cool down. The quicker you get it back in there, the quicker it heats back up. It's a lot easier to move the metal when it's glowing. And right now I'm just trying to get some of the cross peen divots out and flatten out the billet again. So back to my backstory. As I said, so it's about a year ago that I started this whole weight loss journey. And part of that, like I said, was quitting drinking. I was a bit of a bum, a lazy bum, if you will, before I, essentially get off of work and crack open a brewski or twoski, quote from Matthew Posa, and sit in front of the TV all night. So once I stopped drinking, I could not do that any longer. I had a lot more energy, and I just felt like I couldn't sit in front of the TV any longer. I had to get up and do something. Well, a while back, a good buddy of mine, Bob, had invited me over to come out and hammer some steel and forge out a knife, and I'll tell you what, first hit on some hot steel and moving metal with a hammer, I was hooked. However, it was a couple of years. I went out and I bought a forge right away and an anvil. It was a couple of years before I actually started doing it. So once, like I said, I stopped drinking, had a lot of energy. I decided, what the heck, I'd come out and give it a shot. And things kind of took off from there. I started making all kinds of knives and got some really nice comments from folks saying that they really liked the stuff I was making and creating. Always been super passionate about art and just creation itself. I have way too many hobbies. My wife basically says that my hobbies are hobbies themselves, or my hobby is hobbies, having hobbies. So anyways, started making some knives, and here we are. Now I'm starting to get some custom orders in. 511 Tactical, amazing company, invited me out this past weekend to set up a table. Made some great connections, sold some knives, and got a few custom orders. So really awesome. I love it. I'm very passionate about it. Love to know what you think. I'll get some. So if you look at my Instagram, it's gentle_bear_knifeworks. I post a lot of my stuff there, or on my Facebook. But yeah, look me up. Let me know what you think. Place an order if you'd like. But I'd love to hear from you. Seeing a little bit of copper leaking out, so I got to be careful. I don't want it to spray everywhere on me. Getting to a point now where I can start flattening everything out. I think I'm fairly close to the 3/16 I'm looking for in thickness. The rest I can kind of take out with the grinder and call it a day. Might try something new tonight, soaking it in vinegar to get some of the forge scale off. I've heard that works really well. Not sure if I'll go that route or not. I've done a few of these CuMai billets, and usually I just take it to the 2x72 with a 36 coarse grit belt, sand off most of that scale, call it a day. But it's a fun process, I'll tell you what. I encourage anybody who is wanting to get into knife making to do it. It's as simple as that. You just got to start doing it. When I first got started, I built myself a little jig with some 1x4 pieces of wood, kind of in a cross pattern, and a metal eyelet, a steel rod, and a file. And it's just a filing jig for filing your bevels, so you can get a consistent angle when you attach your knife to the wood and you start filing. And you essentially get a consistent angle. I'll show it in one of my videos. Haven't really done much YouTube content, but I figured I'd give it a go. Say hi to all y'all. Maybe get some constructive feedback from some of you professional knife makers and people that have been doing this for a long time, you know. I'm always up for suggestions. Definitely, you know, it's a learning process. I'm new to the game, only been doing it a year, so I'll take all the feedback and suggestions I can get at this point. a pretty straight billet. I got a big bin full of vermiculite. I will heat the billet back up just a little bit, and then I'll stick it in the vermiculite overnight, let it cool down nice and slow, which will anneal the steel and make it nice and soft so that I can cut the blade shapes out. So I'll connect back with you when I do that. Have a wonderful evening, and I'll talk to you soon.